Hey guys, Mr. Freshwater here. We've talked about the top 3 baits for catfish, top 3 lures for crappie, and today we're going to be talking about the top 3 baits for common carp. And common carp is an interesting species overall. It was one of the first Asian carp species to be introduced to the US, and in a lot of states, including the state of Oregon, it has really not become as invasive. Really, as people think, that it has become more, neutralized because it has been here for so long. It has already found a spot in the ecosystem. And today we're going to be talking about the top 3 baits I like to use for them, and that's worked out very well for me around this Portland metro area, the Willamette Valley, fishing the Willamette Valley. And here we go. Number 3, worms. So people don't actually I know a lot of people do know that carp bite worms, but a lot of people are also surprised when I tell them, oh, what do you use for carp to catch this carp here and here? And I say worms, And worms really work for everything. There are actually 2 ways I would do it. First of all is I would do a bobber rig. Bobber rig has worked very well for carp in the past, and basically bobber rig as well as Carolina rig, I should say. Both of these are my go-to setup for worms, especially. All right. Now the great thing you could do with this is that with the Carolina rig, if you want to see that, I see more surface activity for carp. I see them more flipping around, and I know they're higher up in the water column because mainly most of the time carp is pretty deep down. But, in spawning season, in around the spring, they're going to be pretty high up on the water column. What you could do, take a bigger bobber. You don't have to re-rig. Just clip it on like I had it before I took it off. And then you have a bobber rig. On the bottom, tip a worm. And then, thread it on like a sock. And that makes, that's not just for carp or any fish. That minimizes the possibility of them just taking your bait and running, and it also maximizes your possibility of hookup ratio because they can't really take it off, so they really gotta buy the whole thing, and then that's gonna get them hooked. And yeah, so that is my favorite setup for carp. And here going on to number 2. Number 2, corn and bread. So I actually show you guys this video where I'm narrating, but this is my favorite way or my second favorite way to fish for carp. Now there is some problem with this, and it is that especially with bread, especially with sweet bread, and that's the bread I would suggest you to use, because I've actually experimented. We gave a fish a sourdough once, and the carp did not like it. We switched to, just plain white bread. I actually had my friend run all the way to Safeway because I was like, okay, this sourdough isn't working. Let's go. He ran over and then he brought back, the generic, cheapest white bread and throw it on the hook. 30 minutes later, we got a fish on. So bread is a great bait. Now the problem with that, and why I put it in number 2 instead of number 1, is that when you leave it into the water too long, I believe it's gluten or something, it basically binds bread together and it becomes very sticky, wet slop. And your hook is buried in all of that. Now, the sticky, wet slop, it's sticky and wet on the outside, but in the middle, it's like a very tightly packed, sticky dough that basically hides your hook. And it does not easily expose your hook point. In fact, your hook point is almost completely enclosed in this dough. So when a fish even actually has a bait in its mouth, it's going to be very hard for you to be able to set a hook. And that was why I struggled with carp fishing so much last season, is because I was doing this bread. And the bread thing worked earlier in the season, back in when they were all the fish were spawning in June, early June and May. But as soon as you got into summer and they started biting a little less and they start feeding on the bottom instead of aggressively being on the top, I started to notice the hookup ratio getting low. And that's why I do like this, and it's cheaper. It's very easy. You just throw a Carolina rig. So a bread actually helps lift the bait up a little bit off the bottom, and that's kind of like it suspends it, and that's why I like to use it during the spring season, spring like spawning season, because the fish are not all feeding at the bottom. That's what they do in the summer. In the spring, they actually in the middle, even upper water column. So it kind of acts like a power bait for carp. It floats the bait up. So don't use a bobber rig because the bread's gonna flow and then it doesn't really work like that. So just use a Carolina rig. Leader, I like to use fluorocarbon, highest visibility, and hook size 4, size 6, whatever you want to use. Just make sure it's a circle hook, and circle hook goes a long ways for carp. Number 1, my favorite bait, and actually I'm not sure who invented this. The pack bait, the strawberry jello, panko breadcrumbs corn pack bait. It's very easy to mix. I'll actually throw the clip on it right now. You just make sure, if there's too much water, add more breadcrumbs. And if it's too dry, add more water, right? The corn juice works well with it. I actually advise you to use the corn juice. What do you call it? The proportion I did last time was 2 cans of 8-ounce panko breadcrumbs, 1 3-ounce jelly, and I believe you can add more jelly if you want to. It really just adds color and flavor to it. I don't like getting too strong because it just smells way too artificial at that point. So we did 2 breadcrumbs, so 16-ounce, 3-ounce, and we did, I believe it was a 10-ounce can of corn. Now for a pack bait, you could use a Carolina rig. Basically what happens is you just pack the bait onto the Carolina sinker. Make sure it could still slide. You put your leader on there. Of course, that's the simplest way to do it. You just put a kernel on the hook. And again, I would still like to use a hair rig with a little bit of boarding on the end. But that's the most simple way you can fish with pack bait. Method lead is probably the best way. Method lead is probably going to be the best way to fish for carp like that. Now, method lead is a little bit harder to find. I believe you can still get it on Amazon though, but I don't think they sell it in tackle shops, especially not in Oregon. I've never ever seen a method lead in a tackle shop. But method lead setup is probably the ideal one for pack bait because it actually packs in the bait very well. The other method works, but the bait just falls apart a little bit more easily. Same thing, hair rig. Hair rig isn't pretty important. I found that with a boilie versus without a boilie, you could still get hits without a boilie, but the hookup ratio increases significantly if you do have a boilie on there. And again, reasoning is that if you go and look up underwater carp method lead or pack bait footage on YouTube, you'll see that they basically nibble away all that. But if you have boilie filling up, it kind of catches their attention. They just slurp it up, and then the hook gets in tangled either in the side of her mouth and top of her mouth, somewhere around that. So method lead, probably favorite way to fish with pack bait. If not, you could opt for a Carolina rig. The sand smells very well, and commercial carp bait I've also experienced with them, and again, right, carp bait, they really smell very well. They smell like cake or something like that. They smell very well, and this is probably edible actually, but because it's literally just breadcrumbs, jelly powder, which is food coloring probably mainly, and food coloring artificial sweeteners, and then you have corn, right? That they smell really good, and fish like it also. Another side note on corn, there are a lot of corns on the market. I've actually fished with several different types of corn, and in states, of course. Again, let me emphasize this: don't do this in Oregon. But I fished in outside of Oregon, states where they do allow use of trimming. I like to do is use canned corn, because canned corn seems like they hold up the best. Frozen corn don't do it as well. They kind of get soggy and stuff like that, and they fall off pretty easily. But canned corn is best. They're not, obviously not fresh, but they're firm. And they thread it through the side. Again, with canned corn, you do want to chum, and that's why you can't do it in Oregon. But in other states where I don't know whatever states you guys are in states where you could chum, you want to throw out basically what like two handfuls of corn into that area. I did was I had a Carolina rig, rig it up with 2 kernels, and then cast it out there along with spot I had chummed. Let it sit there. What's gonna happen is the fish is going to start picking, and eventually they're gonna get picked up your kernel, and they're gonna yank it up, and they're gonna go. Now, yes, canned corn gives a lot of flavor, a lot more, the sweetness, the corn flavor into the water. But fresh corn, all right, I've actually had fish with fresh corn. With fresh kernels of corn, they're actually very, very firm. And what's good about that is that you could use it for hair rigs, and it's gonna be hard for the fish to be able to, yank it off essentially compared to a canned corn, because canned corn is still a little bit soft. So if you wanna basically like a hair rig, you wanna leave it on for a while, or wanna chum the canned corn out and then have fresh kernels of corn on your hook, I think that would work amazingly. Now I know corn isn't necessarily expensive. You want to conserve bait, but if you want to have something on your hook for a long time and not going to fall off, fresh corn is going to be the way to go. But whatever it is, try to stay away from frozen corn, because those things they don't really got that corn compared to, of course, canned corn. They don't have as much of a strong scent, nor do they stick on the hook very well. And I mean, maybe they're cheaper a little bit depending on where you are, but I'd always just go with canned corn and fresh corn if you want to have it stay on the hook a little bit better. Now that's all for today about carp fishing, and if you like this video, please give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, comment below on what you would like to see next. Fish your freshwater, out.